of the e-learning forum Asia 2017, and I'm more than honored and flattered to introduce our first keynote speaker on the second day. That would be Professor Gilly Salmon from the University of Western Australia. Before I let her take the stage, I would like to give you a brief synopsis in case you have yet to read it from our program. Okay. Professor Salmon indeed is a Pro-Vice Chancellor on Education Innovation at the University of Western Australia. I would say that she is one of the world's leading thinker around learning futures and pedagogical innovation. Her session today is titled Envisioning and Reaching for Learning Futures. Somewhere over the rainbow. Okay. May I introduce and invite Professor Salmon to start her keynote for us, please. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me okay at the back? Yeah, jolly good. I'm going to start with a little video for two reasons. One, this video will set the tone for what I'm going to talk about, and I hope start you thinking from this moment on a little differently about the future for education. And secondly, as you can see behind this, the girl in the video there, this is what my university looks like at the University of Western Australia, and the Centre for Education Futures is, right, can we have the lights down at the front, please? It was working earlier, so. Can you see it now? Jolly good. Let me have a look. Can we take a few more lights down, please?
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. I can press it up. No, it's the wrong way. Put them off.
Put them off.
It's only a short minute.
Take some time.
Can you see it at all? Yeah, okay. We'll go with it. It's a very short video. So, well, you're not going to need to make notes on this, I promise. So what you can see behind this girl and where we actually start off and the river at the beginning, this is where I work. It's one of the most gorgeous, beautiful campuses in the world. And if you think I've got it easy there, it's also one of the most traditional that I've ever worked at. So the Centre for Education Futures is in this gorgeous building, which is in the tradition of amazing universities around the world. They're the hardest to change, so don't tell me I've got it easy, okay? Anyway, I hope this will help you to get into the spirit of our forum this morning.
When we stop moving forward, the world stops with us. So chase your dream. It's only impossible until it's done.
better. So, this is what I'm going to talk about. I think that envisioning and reaching for the future before it happens is something that all of us actually face at the moment. But often, I know it feels like reaching out to that rainbow, attractive, compelling, but ethereal. This fluffy stuff that we all reach for. We need the very rare gift of foresight to illuminate opportunities and have the courage, and it does take courage, and the capability to take action towards them. And that's why it's tough. But there is a marvellous prize of student success at the end of the rainbow, especially for those of us who are willing to try and fail and learn. So all innovators need some ability to make sense of our rapidly changing worlds and find their place within them. Also, to put aside the usual ways of doing things. That's why everyone talks about disruption first. In higher education, we have actually 1,000 years of tradition. You saw some of that from John Williams' talk yesterday morning. Hence, my slides today may be a little bit different from what you're used to. So I invite you to sit back, relax. This has been recorded. I will send out all the resources to you later. There's loads of stuff on my website. So just do it a bit differently this morning. Get yourself into the groove of doing things a bit differently. And I invite you now to explore, to grasp, and actually to spend the time creating future prospects, okay? If anyone does want to do that, it's fine if you go for coffee, all right? So it's challenging. So first of all then, our working context. We all know that the emergence and adoption of digital technologies has rapidly transformed nearly every sector, industry, and business around the globe. Digital technology has been impactful as it has enabled all organisations to more effectively engage with their customers and clients, tap into new sources of revenue. Of course, it's about money, but also change their whole ways of thinking and working. We also know that the bridges and processes to successful digitally driven transformations are extremely unstable. Security concerns, technology adoption and integration, and of course resource constraints are frequently cited as just impediments. There are always pros and cons. So when somebody tells you, oh, but, you must answer yes and. So if you got that, the next oh, but you hear, the answer is yes and. In universities, some of the most powerful potential of emerging technologies also represent anathema to members of academia. I know, I've been a professor for quite a while. I've heard every challenge there ever has been, I promise you. Consider, for example, the rising power of consumers, students, the removal of traditional barriers to entry, and the ease of crossing cultural and geographical boundaries. These are all cited as the reasons for not to change. Don't accept them. Most of our innovations and accomplishments in universities have been achieved through brave experimentation. There's that word, courage again. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Some through personal scholarship, and a few through creative swiping from other than educational contexts. So you need to look over the walls. There have been many large and small initiatives that have failed to meet their objectives, but very few of them have been openly reported and learnt from. However, we have seen some evolution in pedagogies and increasingly in organisational structures to meet them. So I think in universities our most important capital and assets reside in our university teachers. Our generation of new knowledge, our research, and in our campus environments. And yet, I know that the drivers for change for these must come from digital technologies. Once new technologies become embedded in all these other much more stable structures, ideas become innovations. And our world starts to move faster, rather than stop, like the video, towards our preferred futures with visible and meaningful impact for our learners. So I think our longer term aims should be to generate benefits and achievements that our universities will not immediately unlearn with the next inevitable change of senior leadership. So, some changes over the next 10 or more years will be incremental and evolutionary, but some will also be transformational and radical. In my view, most will have a very significant digital element. So I thought I would try and give you this morning a framework for guidance of those different opportunities, so that if you feel courageous after this wonderful forum, then you will be able to have a framework to move yourself forward. Do not wait for someone else to do it for you. So, this is my framework. Here's a framework that I've developed over many years from my research, from my practice, and from my experience of both succeeding and failing. I call this the realm of teaching and learning innovation. And in this land lie the secrets, the resources, and the opportunities for harnessing and unlocking the mysteries of the future and changing forever the way we think and act. It's not for the faint-hearted, so are you feeling strong, conference? Yes. Yes, good. So I'll help you a bit with this, and I'll add some words which starts to give you a few clues about what I'm actually going to talk about. And I'm also going to give you some windows to look through to make it perhaps a little bit easier to focus, because we know from teaching our students, focus is always needed, isn't it? I will be giving you a little test at the end, of course, just to help you along the way. So what I've done is I've put some windows in and put a bit of a dimension on the picture, and I hope this will help you to start to see the range and scope of the realm and put some of its imagery into perspective. And I will now help you to interpret some meaning from the picture and determine some inferences that will help you to shape your own agenda for learning and teaching change. So what I've done is the two dimensions that I've put on have given us a temporary sense. So down the bottom here, this is pretty much where we are now. And up the top right-hand corner is the extreme future. Don't worry, I'm going to explain some more. But each quadrant actually implies some future state, probability, possibility, or potentiality. So what I'm going to do is, for those that really have to have a diagram, this is the only one, all right? So if you want the diagram, down the bottom here, we've got the well-established pedagogies that we're all familiar with, and usually it was the way we ourselves learnt, and university-owned and invested technologies. Up here, we've got using what the university already has to respond to new challenges and opportunities. Over here, we've got using established programs and harnessing new technological opportunities. And up there, we've got the more radical future and the emergence of constant opportunities. So I'm going to actually look at each one of these, going back to the picture, to help you and examine them. Just to say, you will need both research and prototyping and some organisational transformation to be successful. Everybody still alive? Everybody still with me? Yeah, okay. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? If you can only relate to diagrams, take your picture of that one now. I'm moving back to my images. So, this is quadrant 1, bottom left-hand corner. And quadrant 1 is what I call the here and the now. It reflects everything that all of us have done to date and all that we've already managed to put in place. So the quadrant 1 picture illustrates a physical campus with all the usual elements. There's also a large data cube, of course. It actually looks pretty much like the lovely campus where I work at the moment. So it describes our current capabilities in terms of our markets, in other words, the student groups that we seek to reach, and the approaches that most educational institutions have quite strategically chosen to operate in. I've also got a little bit about the technologies we've embraced and the pedagogies we've adopted to bring learning to our students. So in this quadrant, typically include learning technologies and IT structures that the university has purchased, usually through vendors. So you've got your learning management systems, student admin systems, audio and visual technologies, classrooms, lecture theatres like this one, systems such as lecture capture, our laboratories, our online libraries, and digitally enabled study spaces. Now, this university technology becomes out of date quite frequently, and have you noticed, causes much anguish, as despite the extent of it, it never quite manages to meet what university lecturers really, really want. Have you noticed that odd thing happening? They always want something just a little different. Typically, the university has invested in and paid for this vast array of systems, often very complex, often not relating well to each other, and is still trying to build some sort of meaningful and sustainable architecture, puts huge effort into integrating them, paying good money for purchasing and maintaining it all. Now, conference, does this sound familiar to you? Yeah? So, think about what's happening in your own institution. There should not be too many surprises in this quadrant. It should be what your institution has worked for, may hold a few disappointments in terms of the legacy nature, but there's undoubtedly still a chance to innovate here and now to make it more valuable for the learners of the future, and at the same time to get much better value about the enormous, huge and hopeful investments that your institution has already made. Even to keep pace in quadrant 1, our technological environment needs to be flexible and adaptive. Our pedagogy is under constant review because the needs of our chosen market change constantly with time. Every time we recruit the next cohort of students, their needs are different and our infrastructure really hasn't changed. So you need to develop your own aspiration for this quarter. It could be to ensure that every student of your university, regardless of their location or mode of learning, receives equivalent services and learning experiences. Equivalence is a very useful word to explore. Another could be to transform assessment and feedback. Feedback is absolutely critical to learning success. I'm sure you could add your own here. You probably already know what they are. But also in this quadrant lies the flipped classroom and the opportunity to rethink physical spaces, the use of personalisation, wikis, blogs, managing content differently, driving it from a much different open ecological system. Along with this, we should push for proper partnership rather than one-side vending relationships with all the external agencies and suppliers that provide our technology platforms. And our partners, in turn, must seek a much more sophisticated understanding of new students' needs, requirements and resources, and respond in very agile ways with their platforms. In my view, the key to holding all this together is learning design. My own approach is to design or redesign every module, every unit, every course in multifunctional teams, exploiting the absolute best from our university-owned systems. This is the methodology I've called Carpe Diem. I'm not going to talk about it today, but it is all on my website, so please have a look at it. There's Creative Commons handbooks there, and you can have a go at it yourself. And adopt your approach. It's pretty much been crowdsourced around the world now, so just let me know how you get on. That's all I ask of you. So looking again at the map, our universities become both the focus and gateway of opportunity, and if you'll excuse the business speak, they typically embody and represent the brand. Sensitive and fragile though it is, you'll see from the landscape that I see them as ports of learning. The port of learning recognise that universities that were once islands are now part of a much bigger world. Here we need to move to normalising digital opportunities, to imagine, understand, exploit, harness and mature them, to work out how to combine a key part of our legacy, our campuses and our traditions, but add digital technologies fully to the mix to ensure higher quality and the ability to respond to students of the second and third decades of the 21st century. Mobile and internet-enabled information at your fingertips swipe learners. They're not the same as we were when we first entered university. So, do you get the idea of that one? Here comes a cautionary observation. While these developments are valuable and directly impact on students' learning, achievement and experiences, they very rarely position your institution for innovation, or for future achievements, or form a true differentiation from other institutions. That's very annoying, isn't it? But everybody else is doing this too. An issue is that this quadrant is all-consuming and uses the major part of our education institutions' resources, and that focus has prevented more radical innovation. This is the quadrant that's consumed us all. Would you agree? Preoccupied us, perhaps. Perhaps slowed us up from pursuing the impossible. So I'm going to move on and show you another one. This is quadrant 2. I think I've got a number somewhere, yeah. Remember? Top left. Quadrant 2 is about doing much more innovation with what you already have. An absolutely great place to start for adaptive or incremental innovation. It's about using your campus or physical space as the port or the brand, but sending all sorts of vehicles out to where your students reside, the different tribes and territories that they're in. So technology offers us all opportunities to undertake educational processes that are intrinsically flexible and portable, and the learning need not be tied to a certain place or a campus, so long as the community of learners and teachers can and do interact. We can provide the mobility and flexibility that every student craves, services, devices and places that transcend both distance and time. So, in this quadrant, number 2, we have the university exporting learning rather than insisting its customers come to its very own physical space and import the students to where we're at. So in this quadrant, we reach out with new missions, new markets, and new opportunities. We expand on what the university is good at, truly acknowledging that context, not content, is king. So, for example, if you're having trouble of thinking of the way of doing this, and I'm sure you're not by now, more than half the world's population has access to an internet-enabled mobile device. There are 7.5 billion people in the world, and 4.9 have mobile access. Hence, more than half the world's population carries a powerful learning device in their pocket. They are remote controls for people's lives. Are you making the most of this opportunity? To note that certainly in the Western world, nearly all students carry smartphones to campus. 83% of employees use their personally purchased mobile devices for work-related tasks, so we should be doing that to prepare students for the world of work. Essentially, quadrant 2 is the post-PC era. It's about using more fully the capacities and the capabilities of your technologies and infrastructure to reach, to teach, and to manage different types of students with very new learning needs and desires. This is what the marketeers call, bit of business speak coming up, market differentiation, diversification in the way you learn. By the way, most universities are not good at this. Maybe you could change yours. One key area in this quadrant is the move to recognise that learning does not need to include a face-to-face element. Or, if students do attend a physical space, it's for a very specific purpose and is time limited, not because it's the way it's always been done. So the university can maintain its overall accountability, accreditation, quality, graduation responsibilities. The students remain the university's students. But once an institution has learnt how to decouple and deconstruct all the functions that go to make up its educational provision, it is possible and often desirable to recruit partners with far greater capability, capacity and efficiency in some of these aspects. Try talking to your executive about that. See the jaws drop. So in this quadrant, we reach out to new ways of doing things, key opportunities, successful innovation processes. I suggest, if you want to have a go at this quadrant, that you start with the curricula and technologies that you've already established, but undertake innovative pedagogical design. Some of these approaches will fail, and there's a main reason: different values and drivers. But entirely digital courses free the students and the university up, and you'll see that it will point the way to new ways of doing things. Anybody like that quadrant? Do you want another one? This is number 3. Now, quadrant 3 suggests a different approach again. This is our journey into discovery, interpretation, and examination. And that's what we're really good at in universities. This is the quadrant of adopt and adapt. Let's be realistic here. Apart from the occasional successful startup, mostly research in digital technologies does not immediately appear to benefit the students. Typically, in this quadrant, we need to repurpose everyday emerging technologies that have been produced for other than learning purposes. The further right along the axis that you travel, the more you explore, the less obvious, the more radical, and the less clearly adaptive. The more hence you have to innovate your pedagogies to accommodate those technologies. So this is the area where you're taking the huge investment that's been put into emerging technologies outside your institution and bring your knowledge of learning design, problem solving, of pedagogy into the mix. In my illustration, what that is meant to be on the far right is Arthur Clarke's notion of a geostationary orbit, an elevator cable, sufficiently strong and currently just beyond our reach to realise. So the territory of quadrant 3 encompasses the discovery of, experimentation with, and the capture and transportation of technological and digital potential to accommodate new pedagogies. Sure, you can work with your existing students, but lead them to new modes of learning through discovery and interpretation. In this quadrant, innovation is very different from the large-scale incremental achievements of quadrants 1 and 2. You need small-scale prototypes that focus on the changing nature of learning rather than developing more and more technology features. You need to offer small-scale pilots and research partners and clients with a view to developing appropriate digitally enhanced pedagogy. The investment risk implied in any attempt to harness emerging technologies and bring them into your here and now is not cheap, and by the time you do, it won't be new. So there are a lot of challenges in this area, which is why the University of Western Australia allowed me to set up the Centre for Education Futures, where we have 36 small-scale projects ranging across all emerging technologies, some from robotics, 3D printing, and a whole range of others. So you're looking really not at fads, but of adaptation of those. So you do need to think about what structures you need in order to enable a higher risk approach. And that means that you need some sort of opportunity to experiment. So you need to think about what's your just out of reach wish. What would you like to do, for example, with robotics in your everyday teaching There's quite a lot of call for using robotics in almost every form of learning. What can you do for your topic? If you find that you see a wow factor from a new piece of technology that you're using, and you find yourself saying, well, why on earth don't we do that? Then you're on a quadrant 3 journey. So, there's one more. Are you up for one more? Quadrant 4. So just as you thought you were on perhaps a little safer ground, there's another land just visible on the horizon. This is the land of the pursue impossible of my video. This higher right-hand landscape is the most challenging and risky, but potentially offers you the greatest rewards. Many of the world's big challenges, the big global challenges that all universities must address through their future students, poverty, security, climate change, and many more, of the 21st and the 22nd century, they will require responses from the people we're educating now to think differently. So in this land, the very new and biotechnically diverse land, there are the promise of untapped markets, exciting missions, and the exploration of new learning and teaching opportunities and cultures. We can truly create the future in quadrant 4 rather than merely respond to it. You must allow yourself to pursue the impossible. Well, it always seems impossible until it happens. You may need new types of partners to give you knowledge and courage and share the risks and rewards. Now, hidden in these mountains are the newest emerging technologies, as yet unimagined breakthroughs in pedagogy. Exceptional ways to position your university at the forefront of educational innovation. As yet untold ways of truly educating students to deal with very uncertain futures. So you need to look for these very faint signals. They may be low frequency, but they travel far. So I'll tell you where my faint signals are at the moment, but you really do need to find your own. My thinking is around voice-controlled artificial intelligence assistants. I think they're having their moment. It's true that they're using currently in busy households of a fairly mundane diary management, but the success, for example, of Amazon's Alexa or the Echo smart speaker are breakthrough technologies. 100,000 people say good morning to Alexa every day. And so I've been thinking about this faint signal. Now, I think voice-activated devices are proving most helpful for seniors. So many of the babies born today will live to be 120 or more, so we need to think about what happens to them in the last 40 years of their lives. Voice-activated devices, there's no need for dexterity or for looking at a screen. So which of you will found the first university where you have to be 80 years old plus in order to study there? Any offers? No? I'll come and help you. Thank you. I'll come and help you.
No, we have the Institute of Technical.
Yes. They're using voice activation, hopefully. Yeah. Good idea, though. What about humanoid robots? They're going to take the place of your medical doctor. What about your teachers? Scary stuff. We better whisper it. We've been experimenting with harder to reach students and humanoid robots. There's absolutely no doubt that humanoid robots actually reach certain people on, say, for example, the autism spectrum. There's a lot more to go on that, so we should be considering it. What about another tack? Driverless cars, the breakthrough associated with robotics and engineering combined. Lots and lots of jobs of the future will be in this area. Many of the developments have strong and commendable purpose, for example, to reduce fatalities in traffic. I'm always keen to know the purpose of this radical effort, and this seems to be a good one to me. If you ever come and have a look at the lovely campus where I work at UWA in Perth, Australia, there's an autonomous public bus on the roads. So which of you will invent the first driverless university, do you think? There are many, many more areas to inspire you to see faint signals. Space travel, beyond Moon and Mars. Space is now looking at long-term sustainability for humans, green fuel. These are all driving new knowledge, and they're one of the areas you should be digging about for your faint signals for quadrant 4. And what about transhumans? Look it up, it's interesting. This is based on the theory that humans can evolve beyond our physical and material limitations through science and technologies. This has long been considered one of the world's most dangerous ideas. But what if transhumanism captured education ideals of courage, imagination, pursuing the impossible, and the idealism for constructive change? By the way, everything we need for human implants, anyone got them? They were usually put here. I'm going to get one so that I don't have to worry about losing my keys, but I'm sure there's a much better educational purpose than that. And another example is nanotechnology, transforming medicine for now, reversing blindness or repairing damaged brains. What if you could explore nanotechnology for learning purposes? Could you dramatically and quickly change students' abilities to acquire new knowledge, leaving the all-important human time to apply the learning and develop it in response to the world's biggest challenges? So, with more radical innovation, disruption of your own thinking, followed by disruption of traditional custom and practice in your institution is needed. And then you will be able to allow more effective strategies to emerge. So, this is the land for the pioneers, the leaders, not the followers. It's tough to get into this uncharted land. There are inaccessible terrains, difficult routes, no maps, but just remember, if you're brave and you want to tackle quadrant 4, there lies the most exciting and powerful opportunities to create the future for learning. So, territory such as this never gives up its treasures voluntarily, but I believe those of you who've taken the trouble to hear me speak this morning, some of you will be able to have a go at this. So, reality check for quadrant 4. Let's consider the future through a child born in 2017. She will never know a world without the many versions and applications of the internet as yet unimagined. She may well live to be 120 and have multiple life, careers and needs. She will certainly need and expect learning and teaching experience derived from your explorations of quadrants 3 and 4 brought into her here and now. So, would you like a summary? I'm sure I'm running out of time, Kevin. Yeah, shall I keep going? No? So quadrant 1, down here, represents the deployment of the university's existing core capabilities and capacity through incremental innovation, deploying the technologies already in place to solve problems and increase the quality of learning. And my recommendation is that you do this through learning design. It's reasonably low risk, and the time is now. Quadrant 2, that was up the top there, suggests a different approach to incremental innovation, taking the core strengths from Quadrant 1 into new missions and markets. You need more organisational development for this. A bit more risk is present, but if you do it through partners, the risk can be managed. To the timescale to implementation, typically 1 year. You could start it tomorrow and tell me about it this time next year. Hope you will. So Quadrant 3, we were down here, suggests deployment of a university's key strengths in learning and teaching, but adjustment to new technologies. Many of them cannot be owned by the university. They're developed elsewhere with more money than we could possibly invest. Of course, they involve some risk, since imagination is needed, but the timescale could be fairly short if you do small-scale prototyping. So Quadrant 4 represents a more radical and long-term view of technology's products, markets and missions. Higher risk, but also higher value for those who succeed. It's most unlikely to happen without specific investment from your university in learning innovation and cross-sector partnerships. But certainly I've established a Futures Observatory with the first 36 visionary products in less than 3 years, so it can be done. Organisational development is critically important. Investment needs to be made in innovation for all of us, and then in the replicating of success and the investing in initiatives. So my experience from the Education Futures Initiative at the University of Western Australia, I found that doing things a little differently helps everyone to create a new view of the future. It is important to disrupt ourselves before we disrupt our students and others around us. To be clear, it's not about big budgets, it's about space and time and really tapping into our human thinking and then taking serious opportunities to be courageous. Sometimes working under the radar can be a good thing as well. Critically, it starts with determining what needs to stop to make space for new thinking. So, colleagues, that ethereal rainbow, I hope that I've given you a way, perhaps, to reach out into it and use the experience of the 4 quadrants to frame your chase. You need to have your eye on the horizon and your feet on the ground. It's only impossible until it's done. Thank you for listening. I've put some references in these slides so that you can take a look at some of them. If you prefer the traditional way, but thank you very much. I think we can ask questions. And we've got some mics. There's one over here. Over here, Kevin. Can we have any runners with the mic?
Can I just... Thanks, Professor Gilly, Salmon. It's wonderful for you to share your vision. I'm a down-to-earth person. No, not the case. I'm a change agent. Knowing that we have experienced a lot of challenges to encourage faculty members to be more innovative, if not adventurous in their teaching. But somehow, I don't know whether you can offer any solution, because nowadays in university we do have the teaching evaluation, and we heard many teachers talking about they don't want to take risk because it will end up in a disastrous outcome. So given that, whether you can give us some sort of thought, what policy that need to be addressed or need to be changed in order to help teachers to be more adventurous or more ready to take risks?
Yeah, I recognise the problem, and I'm sure it's a common one that everyone faces. However, risks need always to be taken with partners. So our own approach is the Carpe Diem Learning Design approach, which is always done in teams. So we always have, our approach to creating the future is done through design, rather than just telling or even training teachers to take risks. So there's quite a lot of it on my website about it. So the way it actually works is to work with a learning technologist, an information specialist such as a librarian, and the knowledge expert or teacher. It takes a day and a half to go through the process, but at the end of that time you've got a team who are committed to the process and an action plan to take it to fruition. You also would have got peer feedback during the process, including from students if you wish. Now, it is true that some of the designs that come out of that, the very first time that students do them, it may be unfamiliar to them. But it is a matter of enabling staff to take the risk on that by actually a very supportive approach to them. You can't actually say we're going to change the culture to risk and then just do it. It's got to be done on the ground up. We've now run over 300 of these at the University of Western Australia, and you don't hear people talking about can't do it because it's risky anymore, despite the fact that everyone is evaluated, simply because we can demonstrate that the students are more engaged, more successful from those courses that have been redesigned compared to those who are not. So you need to get a bit of a groundswell, you need to actually do this and then demonstrate that it's successful. And we're now getting lots and lots of people coming back and doing it with another course or wanting to add a little bit more innovation in there. The students will see it. We think, we need to tell students that we're experimenting with one little bit of this course, not to just tell them, you've got to do it this way, that we want your evaluation. And we've put easy and quick ways of evaluating small interventions and innovations in. So I suppose it's a complex systems approach to changing the approach to risk. You know yourself there's no quick fix to this, but I strongly suggest that you shift from the training and professional development culture to one of a design culture, because that enables people to have confidence in transformation. Hope that's a bit of help. If you look on my website, this one here, gillysalmon.com /carpe-diem. There's loads more stuff on there, including Creative Commons handbooks. So good luck. Let me know how it goes. More questions, expressions of horror, disbelief? Any more? There's one over there. Thank you.
Thanks for the very amazing talk and very creative visions and very beautiful, I would say. But as you just share that we might move from the training culture actually to engage both teachers and students more in a creative way. So I come across a term in a book called How to Change When Change is Hard or Difficult. Right? There's a term called TBU. I don't know whether all of you, some of you heard of that. True but useless. I'm not saying that negative, sorry. It's amazing, still amazing. But you share that we know about the big picture, we know about, especially number 4, the region. It's like those pioneers, like the people who change the world, like people create Disneyland or McDonald's, right? Because they change the culture. But coming back to 1, 2, 3, you share about different means to engage teachers and students to innovate more. How do we know who are the good partners to work with? You talk about partners, okay? When you talk about learning designs, the key, what does that mean to, different key stakeholders? Do we mean everyone should have a designer or design mindset, or does it mean that we should start from the bright spot because we can't change the problem of, the the rich and poor, that kind of big health issues, I mean, in a day. We start day by day from daily practice and then more research. I mean, is there any other insight from that perspective? Thank you very much.
Well, I'll take that question on this. For each of the 4 quadrants, what would be the first action that you might take? And the first action you take is to change yourself. You can't go around disrupting your students, your stakeholders, or anyone else unless you change your own mindset first. So the first thing to do is to find ways of understanding it. So I've dropped a tiny ripple in the pond, I hope this morning, for you to continue to explore. But I did actually suggest some first actions. Down this side, you need everyone on board. If you're going to make incremental quality changes across the whole area, and that's where we do the learning design carpe diem and build it upwards. You can also explore with your partners, particularly your learning management system partners. They will have a broad view of what's going on around the world. Up here, in quadrant 2, the first thing to do is to start to explore partners to enable you as a university to do what you do well and to tap into the huge move towards digitalisation, enabling a customer focus over there, so that you don't have your teachers doing everything. They do what's right for them, and you look at a customer focus. Down here, you need to pick 1 or 2 small prototypes and get your students engaged with helping you. Not just your PhD students, all your students. So, for example, at the University of Western Australia, one of our most successful experiments is engaging our medieval history students in using the HTC Vive, which is a fairly low-cost form of virtual reality, so that they actually do medieval jousting rather than read about it. Up the top here, this is where you need to push your boat out and explore. But, for example, say a few years ago, somebody invented MOOCs. What you were really looking for is exploring what the new MOOCs are, not the next content of MOOCs, but something like that took the whole sector by storm. I'm sure there are times when you think of things like this, you just need to have a way of taking them forward to make them happen. So I can't fix that for you, but disrupt yourself first. On the right-hand side, small-scale experiments with the people most affected by it. Not all of it will work. You've got to actually get over this idea of failure. If you're only going to do things that work, you'll always be down this bottom left-hand corner, and that's a fact of innovation. Hope that's of some help. I'd be happy to talk to you some more. Any more challenges?
As the MC, as well as the program chair, I would say this is the last one, if there's anyone.
Looks like they're all going to go off courageously and do it now. So. I'm around. Okay,
So you take the last one?
I was looking at quadrants 2 and 3, right? It's a choice. Right, we can go up or we can go sideways.
Sure.
What are the challenges, do you think, of making that choice? I mean, if I want to choose, what would be the opportunities that I'm looking for in quadrants 2 or 3?
Sure. I think in quadrant 2, you're looking for this aha moment. So what I do with quadrant 3, though, is get the lecturers come to me with a pedagogical problem, and then we explore the Futures Observatory, which has got examples of virtual reality, augmented reality, a whole range of gamification, different mobile technologies, different all sorts of different things, and then say, what if we use this to solve your problem? So drive it from a pedagogical problem solving, but then you would need an array of things to explore. It could be a virtual array. Nearly everything can work that way. And then watch what captures people's imagination. We've got the Now robot, NAO, you've probably seen it. It's absolutely great. I can program it. It's easy to program. You're programming it virtually, and then it goes into, her name is Ruby the robot. And it's amazing how you suddenly see that captures people's imagination. And we've had lots of lecturers say, well, can I just bring my students in, to see this? And so I just watch for that little spark. So that's what I'd suggest you do around there. Quadrant 2, you're looking for new markets where you perhaps have a partnership. And we all know any partnership, you need to explore the different values and different opportunities. So the way to get a partnership working is fairly similar to the way you get a team working, which you may be more familiar with. So you're looking at what each brings to the table, and then you just have to sit down and work that out. So sometimes you'll see that from commercial vendors who are coming to you with ideas. Sometimes you'll drive it from something that the university wants to explore greater numbers of students in some area. And then you're actually looking. For example, you can look up Swinburne Online, which is Swinburne, it's the University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia. And while I was there, we set up a very successful partnership with an Australian commercial company who knew how to do customer service, who knew how to run all the sorts of things that the university had never done. And that has now resulted in 10,000 entirely online students. So you're looking for the spark. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. In the meantime, apart from thanking Professor Salmon, may I invite Professor Eric Choi, co-chair of the E-Learning Forum Asia 2017, to present a souvenir of our appreciation. Okay.
Wonderful talk, thank you. Autonomous flying machine.
Oh, super. Thank you.
Semi-autonomous.
I'll find a pedagogical purpose for
You
it,
need to
Eric.
hold it, otherwise it's like return it to me. Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Professor Choi and Professor Salmon. Before we dismiss for the break, I would like to hold your attention for two things. First thing, we are still running 2 sets of simultaneous interpretation headset short. If you retained your SI headset and equipment mistakenly yesterday from your session, please be advised that we want you and need you to return your headset to our helpers when you are done with a session. Much appreciated. Okay. And we are going to have our tea break out there. And if you are not eagerly wanting to go out for the tea break, we do have some questions for you. If you're interested, you can try to answer those questions. So maybe we have time after the next plenary or near the closing that we can come back to your responses on those questions. In the meantime, I'll let you take your tea break first. The parallel sessions will start sharp at 11 o'clock, and the session chairs are advised to report to the room at your earliest convenience. We'll see you after the lunch break at 1:40. Thank you.
咦，開咗個錄到咗頭嚟㗎，開咗個錄咗頭嚟，可能一陣咗頭。